It took Lynn a moment to register a request. She didn't think she would occur at least for the remainder of the year, but she moved a little further into the shade so Lincoln wouldn't be exposed to the sun. The younger boy had sat down, a bit just out of arm's reach, which Lynn expected. Lincoln didn't say anything after, preferring to focus on his own lunch for the meantime. The brunette eyed at the sandwich he dug out of his bag, peanut butter with sauerkraut. Of course, Lynn took a mental note, her eyes closing slightly, with it pressing her teeth together so her tongue wouldn't stick out in disgust. To this day, she still didn't understand why he liked the taste, often considering it Gordy like the rest of her sisters, even Lana, who apparently had no problem eating out of the dumpsters. It's not the peanut butter Lynn didn't get. Anyone likes that stuff unless you were allergic. It was the chopped up lettuce, onion, and sometimes carrots, all in mayo. Lynn would occasionally order a little condiment with her sandwiches, but it was never a lot. She could remember there was a time when she might have ordered more than one like that, but these days, you could say she accidentally trained herself to hate it. The former athlete's gaze dropped for a moment as to not too recent memories of her and the other girls, chiding Lincoln over his food choices, made themselves known. Again, it was a thing for Lana to be eating out of the garbage, which was a serious health concern and really gross. But at least Lincoln wasn't eating day-old chicken leg covered in ants. Lynn realized that she must have staring at it for too long and seen her brother gaze at his sandwich while his chewing slowed. Crap, he's probably getting himself whatever, Lisa would say. Something. Her mind screamed at her. So, how's your day been? Lynn asked in an awkward tone, putting a toothy smile in hopes to ease her brother. Lincoln stole a glance at her, making Lynn smile wider. Visible sweat formed across her forehead. The look he gave made it clear that he wasn't buying the charade, but for whatever reason, he chose not to comment on it. He thought that her first remark would have been about his choice of lunch, seeing that his sisters didn't like the stuff. Good. Lincoln turned to direct his gaze away from Lynn. In a way. Another awkward silence befell the two. The former jock couldn't help but become a little annoyed at this. So Lincoln just shows up out of nowhere and asks to sit with me, but he still can't at least make a small talk? What happened to all the stuff we said during therapy? Lynn's nose flared but put the brakes on her negative emotions. But even then, I can't blame him. He's nearly spent 2 flipping months thinking we're gonna... She bit her cheek. I hate to even saying it, but that's the whole stint with Dr. Lopez, in a place where you feel comfortable. School was never since he got back. Lynn then stole a glance at her brother, whom immediately diverted his attention to elsewhere as he saw Lynn look at him. The brunette sighed awkwardly. Guess I'll have to be a talker again. She placed her lunch back inside her bag before sitting on the grass. Lincoln, the boy flinched when Lynn called his name. You know I'm going to ask, but why did you wake up so early today? I mean, I believe I already know why, but I might be wrong. If you already know, Lincoln began, swallowing part of his sandwich. Then why do you think I did? Not wanting to wait in line for the bathroom or just being around us in general. Lynn gave a light shrug. We all figured you wouldn't want to ride in the van either, but that would be obvious. Lincoln bit his cheek. I guess I really am easy to read. Actually, Lynn declared, a look towards him. You've been throwing us off our games since you sent that text to Lori. The boy felt as if weight was pressed on his chest. What? He eyed at Lynn with suspicion. What kind of game are you talking about? The brunette noticed the muscles in his legs becoming tense, which would allow Lincoln to get up and run if he felt threatened. I didn't mean like that, Lynn spoke quite quickly, frantically waving her hands back and forth before adding, I was just talking about our plan to keep avoiding you until you felt comfortable about being around us again. Lincoln gave a hum in understanding, relaxing his muscles a little. We thought you'd take a long time to want to be back home. Lynn paused for a moment. Well, much longer than 2 months. Lincoln stared at the ground at his half-eaten sandwich, having been placed back into the bag. I can't keep avoiding you girls forever, even if I'd be safer that way. Lynn formed a solemn frown at that. and that I realize trying to do so is next to impossible at home, not just for me but for you guys as well. Do you think it'd be better if you went back to Clyde's house? Lynn hated to ask that, seeing all the potential progress that was towards Lincoln overcome his fear or resentment being sent back to the Dark Ages. However, it wouldn't be worth putting the boy's sanity and self-esteem at risk. I thought about it since coming back, Lincoln replied, idly twisting up the top of the paper bag. But I've gotten this far. I told Clyde's mom and dad I was ready, and I don't want to disappoint them by leaving. Lynn blinked in surprise, understood the basis of Lincoln's point. In a sense, he was trying not to quit while he was in the game, and he was willing to put as much determination as he could to see it go through at the end. To win if the circumstances weren't so depressing, she'd be more proud of him than she was currently. But I still don't know how to handle being at home with everyone. I guess I could stay in my room until dinner, but what if I want to go watch TV or just read comics on the couch? Lincoln droned in, staring out into space. I like my privacy if I get any, but I don't like to spend all my day in my room, and even if you guys try to avoid me when I want to do either of those, how would that work? I don't know, Lynn stated, shifting her position a little. But you are the man with a plan. You definitely come up with something. Lincoln let out a dry laugh, and making Lynn turn to him. I doubt I even deserve that title. Lynn squinted an eye. But what about... I may plan my stuff, Lynn, but you and everyone else knows my plans don't always work. Whatever because I forgot to take something into consideration, or... Lynn looked towards Lincoln with a sour look. My sisters butt in and muck things up. One of Lynn's eyes twitched and felt irritation entering her system. Fortunately, she was quick to bite her tongue, witty remark before past her lips. We don't always ruin your plans, Lincoln, she spoke in a firm tone. Well, you guys certainly didn't seem interested in actually helping me get groceries that one time. Lincoln furrowed his brows. Or the fact that you are the chocolate and I was going to use it for a school project. Speaking of projects, there's also that one time my Domora got ruined because Lori had refused on leaving the house because Bobby didn't want to wear a suit or something. Hey, Lynn narrowed her eyes before pointing the accusing finger at him. It was your fault for dropping it in the first place. One could hear some strain in her voice, and she did her best to avoid yelling. Surprisingly, Lincoln wasn't fazed by the irritation coming from his sister. And let's not forget the time you girls tricked me into thinking Lola was going to do something horrible to me because I wanted some peace and quiet while I read, folding his arms. I should have thought you were all trying to find out you and try something. Just like I would have figured you girls couldn't handle the truth when I said your plans stink. Ink. Lynn's planted her hands into her sides as they tightened to fists. Want to run that by me again? She spoke through her teeth. Lincoln rolled his eyes before looking away from Lynn. Do I really need to bring up the time you, Luna, Luann, and Lucy set me up 4 dates to Sadie Hawkins' dance, and I said I wasn't interested in going, but you just had to play matchmaker, huh? The snow-haired child retorted. Sure, I lied about Ronnie Ann not asking me, but who sets up a guy with 4 dates? I wasn't even that upset, but not going to the dance? The middle child huffed before simmering down a little. I probably would have saved myself a pain letting you sleep in my room when you and Lucy had that stupid fight too. When he already turned back to his sister, he took a note of the glare that she was giving him. It looked awfully close to the one she gave him before breaking his arm. Not only that, but hands were already tightened to fists. Either one could be launched right at his face before he could even react. His anger dropped immediately, completely, pupils shrinking and his face fleeing, as if color was already draining from it once it dawned on him that he may have ticked off Lynn even more than he could have. Knowing that her temperament was the shortest amongst his sisters, the only reason he could think of as to why she didn't jump him now was due to planning which area to inflict the most damage towards. Immediately his thoughts turned into the planning an escape route. He would try and find the dead spirits sprint towards the nearest shelter. Unfortunately, one glance towards the nearest door would make him think such a temperament would be futile. Lynn would catch him up halfway regardless. like she caught him on the stairs in that infamous day. Lynn then dropped her glare, seeing her brother suddenly locked up. She started to become worried when that face filled with fear reared its unsightly head, was staring towards Backer. Shit, I didn't scare him, did I? I mean, I just glared and all, but... Then the girl went eye-wide upon realizing, oh shit, what is he thinking about that? Knowing she had to act quickly before things got messy. Lincoln, She reached a calm hand out to him. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Lincoln interrupted, making Lynn pause in her movement. Lynn felt as if her heart was breaking at the point her brother shuffled away from her before he started to curl up into a defensive ball. I didn't mean to say all that stuff. It just slipped. I take it all back. The former athlete blinked fresh tears away upon hearing the cold fear in his tone. Just don't hurt me. He tucked his head and arms into his knees, hands gripping the biceps as if he were trying to lock them in place. Please don't break any of my arms again. Seeing Lincoln at the verge of a nervous breakdown wasn't new to Lynn. The fact that he didn't try to throw something at her or run away was arguably a good chance of a good chase of pace. But at the very least, the 13-year-old brought a hand to her mouth, biting on her knuckles as she racked her brain on how to help him. His breathing was shaky as he fidgeted on the spot, but Lincoln still made no sign of attempting to run. Her first instinct was to hug him, but immediately withdrew the idea of making him fly to a frenzy. Link, I'm not going to hurt you, Lynn spoke softly. I don't want to. I won't do. A bit of disgust ran through her as she remembered the intentional condition at the hospital. That ever again. Lincoln didn't move from his current position, nor fidgeting seize. Of course he wouldn't believe me, Lynn sighed awkwardly. I could walk away and let him calm down on his own. Might be the best option, but... She bit her lip. Damn it, I just can't leave him like this. He's my brother, for corn's sake. Unfortunately, the heat of the moment, Lynn couldn't come up with the best solution from the most risky one. Actions speak louder than words, right? The brunette scooted over to her brother, being deliberately slow as her approach, not to spook him any further. Once she was next to his curled form, Lynn opened up her arms and gently wrapped them around her brother. She knew Lincoln had been subjected to the group hugs on occasion, with regular one from his sisters at some point throughout the week. However, Lynn couldn't remember the last time she gave her brother a genuine hug. Typically, it was a bear hug or fake out resulting in 2 dabs to Lincoln's arm. The former athlete hoped that she could correct that sight in the future. Plus, Lincoln didn't even try to hit or push her away. Lincoln's breath hitched before bringing his head up, growing very alarmed seeing Lynn embrace him. Spoke too soon. Lynn, he squeaked out in a weak voice. Shh. The older girl soothed, rubbing his back. It's okay, bro. Lynn, Lincoln squirmed a bit in her grasp, starting to regret having to put his arms in a position where he couldn't use them. Please, Lincoln. Lynn spoke softly, but with the firm undertone. I'm not going to hurt you. I already messed that up on my end for years. All that time I spent trying to get you into stuff I liked, not thinking about what you liked or making fun of it. And I screwed up big time after getting you in the clinic. Her cheek tingled in that brief memory, the white-haired child smacking his food tray in the face. Lynn then shook her head and pushed that thought aside. All I want to do is help you, as your older sister, as someone you could look up to. I know you don't trust me much, but I never stopped loving you as my brother, even when I'm angry. Lincoln blinked a few times, when her eyes felt watery. Fairly recent memories of all the crude pranks she spilled on him before the incident played around her in her head as a few tears stained her cheeks. But I have a crappy way of showing it. Lincoln studied Lynn's face for any signs of falsehood, even carefully listening the way her voice pitched and trembled to see if he could pick up any lack of sincerity. The fact that he couldn't find any other left him deciding whatever he should be received or even more nervous. He started to quake again, prompting Lynn to hug him tighter, Winston giving a soft pat to the arm. It finally started to dawn on him that Lynn was hugging him a normal, sisterly way. Not the usual try to crush my spine or act like I want to hug, but really use my head as a knuckle grinder, tomboyish way. She hasn't done anything like this since, I guessed it might be before she started doing sports. Obviously, Lincoln couldn't recall the exact moment, but figuring it out before Lynn grew up interested in her hobby, and before that brash attitude came into play, you have to say that it would have been he was the only toddler, and she's not even telling me just to suck it up, or however she normally tries to cheer me up. His eyelids dropped a little. Technically, her way is getting me to do exercise, but this is. He couldn't find any of the right words for it. It was as if Lenny somehow possessed Lynn to bring out the compassion side of her. Then again, he didn't even think Lenny had the mean bone in her body. But that was easily disproved when she took part of pounding him into the floor that afternoon. And since that happened, it shouldn't have been the question as to whatever Lynn could actually be this nice. Yet it was. After living with a growing number of sisters, I always thought I had figured them out. Lori was bossy, Lenny was nice, Luna was musical and chill, Luann was funny sometimes, Lynn, well, I guess competitive, is one thing to describe her. Lucy was creepy, Lana was gross but know her tools, Lola thankfully won't hear this, is spoiled, Lisa smart, and Lily was just cute. Lincoln's nose flared and his eyes became wetter. I never thought I'd get super angry, but I guess I never knew them as well as I thought I did, he sighed. Which means I never saw the whole picture like Miss Lopez said, for way longer than I thought. Lincoln heard the door opening somewhere nearby. Looking towards the school, he saw people from his grade exiting the lunchroom, making a beeline towards the playground. Lynn notices as well and saw her head move in this apparel. No wonder why my plans never worked out when my sisters were involved. I barely knew them from the side of how they normally act. And how am I supposed to figure out how to deal with them now? I can't keep staying away from them forever, and I can barely talk to them when alone. He sank his head into his knees again. I don't even know what to do anymore. Huh? Lynn looked towards her brother, having been idly watching from the other kids play. I said, Lincoln rose his head, I don't know. I know what to do. Ew, one of his legs gave a dull pulse of pain, and my legs are starting to cramp. Oh, my bad. Lynn released him before repositioning herself. Lincoln straightened his legs and then let his arms fall to the ground. Everyone in the house calls me the man with a plan, but I don't deserve that name. Like, I could take months trying to cook up something. Like, I did try to get the sweet spot, but it all failed because I didn't figure out several things beforehand. Even my plan to get you and Lucy to stop fighting was a total waste, and spent the whole day making food and setting up everything, and I always thought I knew my sisters well enough to plan around for you guys. But it might be the other way around. Lynn squinted as her eye tilted to the one side. What do you mean? You girls know I wasn't really listening when I brought this noise-canceling earbuds, or Lola did at least. I should have figured out what everyone wanted would make fun of my Ace Savvy costume, since you girls already teased me about reading comics. Lynn sulked a little, recalling how sad Lincoln was after a week's worth of teasing. And I also should have figured out that there might have been a reason Lori goes drill sergeant on us when Mom and Dad leave her in charge. And somehow you guys were right, and when it turned out Ronnie Ann was picking on me because she liked me. Actually, Lynn started, the last one was a bit of a fluke. Lincoln raised a brow. The brunette twiddled her thumbs. You didn't know it at the time, but I was going to get her off your case when she stuffed you in the locker with trash that one time. Looking directly at Lincoln. She does really care for you, Link, but I think all those pranks were the best way to grab your attention, because Lori did that to her boyfriend. Lincoln didn't know how to feel about that, though it did explain why Ronnie Ann suddenly targeted him out of nowhere. But then why did she punch me? Well, how would you feel if your crush suddenly kissed you? Lincoln blushed a little. Well, he averted his gaze. He briefly thought of Christina, but his mind then drifted towards his feelings for Ronnie Ann. I wouldn't punch her in the eye, at least. Lynn made a slight smile. She just freaked out. Heck, she was even more afraid I'd break her in half afterwards. Lincoln felt a little uncomfortable hearing that. It sort of contracted that fact that Ronnie Ann showed up Lynn in a fight. Not that he'd say it out loud. He dispelled a breath he didn't know he was holding, deciding to move on. But my point still stands. My sisters know me more than I know them. Trying to build a plan for what I want to do is pointless, because at the end of it all, it just would be a waste of time. He brought his hands to his face, lightly pulling down on the skin, exposing the lower parts of his eyes. It's just tiring, Lynn. I really shouldn't have planned on how to get to the bathroom first, when I could just get some peace to myself, or make sure no one takes the last cheesy bites that I was saving. And I was just about ready to call it quits, because during the whole time, I had to cover for everyone during chore day, before everyone had to come home, and I hate having to do it. But trying to plan around my sisters just to get out of the house without noticing an example. But I feel like I don't have that choice because... Lincoln tilted his head back until he made contact with the tree. I'm just the only boy in the house. Lynn sunk her head as she felt guilt filled her chest. It was no secret that the girls had tended to one-hope up Lincoln and belittled him for his own interests, often forgetting the simple fact that they didn't share his hobby or didn't understand why he liked certain things. They already had an uncomfortable discussion of how they made him feel more isolated than he already had been, and hearing him come to the realization on his own wasn't doing Lynn any favors. Maybe if I was a girl, maybe I'd fit in better. Lynn shut her eyes for a moment, unable to sit and hear her brother's self-deprecation of any longer. No, I wouldn't. Why? Because Lincoln, the former athlete started as she pulled her knees to her chest. You give us too much credit. You may think we can just read you like a book, but the truth is, she brushed a little of hair to her side. We don't really know you at all. We tease you and mock you for liking the stuff you do just because we weren't interested in it. I don't get why you like certain stuff, but we never really took the time to appreciate that we even have a brother. You could argue I did try my best to get you into sports, but we both know that that for a while I didn't care about the fact that you weren't interested. Lincoln couldn't disagree as his head dipped a little. I hate using this word because it makes me sick, but you could say we've been acting a little bit sexist towards you. Lynn then recoiled a little, as if she ate something sour. You're pretty smart, bro. You often pulled out ideas that none of us have fought before. But then we ended up hijacking it and making like a total loss. And even when all of us sacked with the grounding, you ended up feeling like you were taking the burnt of it because you really felt you weren't fit in with us as a group. She then scratched the back of her head as a sigh escaped her. Doesn't that help that someone's trying to help you make it seem like you weren't the only one who started it? Lincoln felt as if some heat rise in his chest as a grocery store incident came to mind once again. One, he could argue that his mother was at their fault for assuming Lincoln was the main reason for the family banned from the store, but none of the girls confessed their part in the mess on the ride home when it might have been beneficial. There was also the fact that his sisters nearly caused him to fail in class on 3 separate occasions, maybe 4 if you were to consider the Polar Bear Project. But could you argue his class was just simply too dense to realize he had a large family? So you might think we're better than you, but we're not angels, and we have been the greatest sisters even before all this. Sometimes I even wondered if I'd get a brother, Lincoln stated, frowning a little. But then I worried he may end up being a total jerk. No offense, Lynn. He then looked at her. But you're the closest one I have to one. He paused as he pondered the something. And sometimes Lana, aside from Clyde and Bobby. Lynn raised a hand. I'm not that offended, but I'd think I'd make a better sister than a brother. Even then, you'd still win a bunch of trophies like her sisters. His face soured a bit. Even most improved brother. Lynn could already see where this was going. Lincoln. Just about every girl in our family won something at a young age. I barely get anything done. Sometimes, Lincoln hesitated for a moment. Sometimes I felt like Mom and Dad don't have anything to be proud of when... He paused as he felt a hand on his shoulder. He then turned to Lynn, only to flinch as she was giving him the sour, piercing stare. I'm gonna stop you right there, bro. First off, Mom and Dad are proud of you. You might not have the same some trophy or whatever the gloat to give out, but they are happy that they actually have a son they can raise. Lynn gave a slight chortle. Heck, Dad may have named me after him, but I still remember how loud he was screaming after finding out you were a boy while Mom was carrying you. She squinted with an eye. And I think I can remember crying nonstop until Mom put me back to sleep. I guess, though we barely do much, Lincoln pointed out. What about Mom? Lynn gave a shrug. You can ask her at home. Also, I heard from Ronnie Ann that you may have a knack for drawing, so you definitely got something going for ya. I sure as heck can't draw to save a life. The brunette then spoke her last part, while chuckling to herself. Lincoln was caught off guard by this, only to remember his friends and sisters kept in touch for a while, so naturally, Lynn would have heard stuff about this. Not only that, Lynn was encouraging this newfound hobby instead of bashing it over for not being something sports-related. Guess she learned not to tease me over stuff I like. That's pretty nice, actually. The middle child repositioned himself so he sat cross-legged. During the latter of the part of the chat, Lincoln subconsciously noted that he was feeling a little bit more ease around Lynn than he would have expected. Actually, he would have believed that he may have never been at peace if he wasn't around any of his sisters besides Lily, and once again, he felt that he was being proven wrong with Lynn's actions. But for the life of him, he couldn't figure out why. Maybe it was the fact that she was finally acting like a protective older sister? But that wouldn't explain why he had sought her out earlier. Is it because she was being honest with me the whole time? Or maybe it's because she kept coming to me so she could apologize. Lincoln muttered to himself. She was the only sister, not counting Lily, to see me at the hospital by herself. He closed his eyes a little. I thought it was the same day Ronnie Ann visited me, and they had their fight that day, so it could have been a coincidence. But then when she came to me at lunch one day wearing the baggy clothes with her hair down, he eyed Lynn from the edge of his vision, who was preoccupied with her phone at the moment. Ever since he had gotten to seen her since, the brunette always keep her hair down in a ponytail like usual. She could have been really trying hard to get me to trust her, but then we decided that she didn't need to change her looks, so she figured it would make me wonder if she was being serious or not. Winston turning his head away. She always said we were close when we were younger too, so it could have been just old habits coming up. I mean, I guess I get a little closer to Lynn than the rest of my sisters, since she's not that much older than I am. Lincoln shook his head. It's weird. Maybe I can ask Mom or Dad about it at home. The thoughts about this house brought a waving of dread. Dang it, I still haven't figured out how to be around everyone else at home. You okay, Link? Lynn's question brought to him out of his thoughts, as Lincoln wiped his head around towards her. You were getting sad again. You know how you always wanted me to talk to Luann next? Lynn nodded. I'm not ready to speak with her, or at least I won't be for a while. It's not that I won't follow your suggestion, it's just... Lincoln moved a handle in a circle. You know how Luann is sometimes. Right, Lynn agreed, pocketing her phone. I only brought her up because I know like me, she has a lot to make up for. She bit her cheek. Probably more than you remember April 1st. But I get it though. Hardly anyone in the house can have a serious talk with her without a joke being thrown in. Or a prank. Lincoln furrowed his brows a little. I just can't begin to count of how many times she's thrown a pie at my face. Okay, so Luann is off limits for now, but who else do you think you want to talk to? Lincoln mulled and thought, wrapping his fingers along his forearm. I don't know, but I was... Lynn then raised a brow. Lincoln then gripped his arm in an attempt to calm the swirling in his chest. I was wondering if you could help me figure that out. Lynn had bit her tongue in to keep her mouth from dropping open. Under normal circumstances, Lynn would have wholeheartedly given her brother some great advice. Well, if you consider doing something sports, exercise related, or brutish as a great advice. But it still made her heart swell that Lincoln was actually asking her for help on what to do. Even when it seemed like he still didn't trust her that much. But hey, it's a start, right? It wasn't like her official job as a Latian between the rest of her sisters, and Lincoln was going to try to end up anytime soon. Sure, Lynn stuttered, shifting her around until she was resting on her knees. Now, would you prefer to start off with the younger or the oldest ones first? Lincoln hummed and fought. Unlike Lynn, his older sisters definitely had a size advantage while being a little more crafty. In the case of Luann, or hot-tempered, namely Lori and sometimes Luna, Lenny was something of a sweet spot though. While she was as tall as Lori, she was hardly the one to become angered. Though Lincoln wasn't too certain of her real temperament in the light of recent events. The younger sisters, though, Lincoln visibly shivered. I think I'll take my chances with her older sisters. Lynn gave a shrug. Honestly, she felt her opinion could have been a hard choice for him, but she couldn't help but wonder. How come? For starters, I never thought about creepy Lucy would be until now. Her popping out of nowhere is already scary enough, but the fact that you can't see her eyes while she's looking at you. He paused to gather his thoughts. It's just really creepy not knowing what she's thinking. Fair enough, but the last part might be off, because she stopped covering her eyes since. Lynn shifted awkwardly. Since you were at the hospital. Lincoln became eye-wide. But she never let her eyes be shown, even for picture day. A lot of stuff's changed since, Link, the tomboy stated in the solemn voice. She may have been a closed book for as long as we can remember, but she's a bit more open these days. But I don't see your eyes last night. He then was hesitant to answer, as she tried to remember if he really did during this random scans at the table. Probably because you were too busy keeping your focus on your plate, bro, Lynn pointed out. But I don't blame you. Lucy's kinda hard to notice. It bothers her more than you think, but she doesn't say anything. She thought that she could add more to it, but then Lynn realized that it wasn't her place to say. Lincoln stayed as silent as he processed this. Thankfully, the tomboy decided to move on. So what about the others? Lola's, he paused, taking a moment to find the right words. Knowing how cunning she is and tries to get what she wants by any means, I can't see myself talking to her for a while. Lana's okay unless she wants me to help her with her pets. Lincoln tapped the chin. Actually, I'm not even sure if she's had any left. Lynn frowned a little. Just 3. The rest were given to others after the shelter they were there for so long. Lincoln mouthed out, Oh. As for Lisa, a few of his nightmares rapidly flashed through his mind, making the tomboy shut his eyes and shaking his head. Lincoln? Lynn asked with mild worry. How many times has she tried to turn something into an experiment? Lynn sighed. Too many to count. I think she's tried to took my kidney in my sleep once. So you get where I'm going with this? Lincoln then looked up towards the clouds, and with all that, I'd rather deal with bossy Lori and unpredictable Luann. I don't know what to think of Luna or Lenny, since they aren't as nice or chill as I thought they were, but I still take them over my younger sisters. Lynn raised a hand. I won't judge, but I agree because having a spooky as a roommate isn't peachy. She then rested her hands behind her head. So out of those 4, who would you be wanting to talk with the most? I don't have a preference. It was hard enough deciding to start talking with you. A smirk developed on Lynn's face. Well, if you could work up to the idea of talking to us, and the others should be easy. Lincoln would have inclined to agree, although it wouldn't feel that simple. Lynn was easy to figure out since playing mind games wasn't her style. She was all physical. The same couldn't be said for the rest, though. Dealing with Lori would depend on her mood, as she wasn't afraid to strong-arm him, or if that didn't work, she'd give him a wedgie. Luna was a bit of a proper opposite, and she was much less likely to lash out when in a good mood, although there were times when she had threatened to hit someone with her instruments. Plus, she knocked them into the walls with loudspeakers more than once. Luann was a cloud of mystery. Even though when she's in a good mood, she wasn't always above pulling pranks. The severity of them depended on whenever she wanted to be vengeful or a clown. Lenny, as far as he knew, didn't even think to toy with people, since she was arguably too pure to do so. But it was still clear she wasn't okay with the head in more ways than could be said. She seemed like the best option, although Lincoln would have to be cautious. Well, in that case, I'd take any chances with Lenny? Lynn nodded. Think you probably try it out tonight? Probably. Not wanting to seem like she was pressuring him, Lynn left it at that. Unfortunately, she knew she couldn't spend any more time talking with her estranged brother. She was always skipping one of her classes right now, as lunch ended a while ago. Unlike the smaller grades, middle schoolers didn't get recess much outside of lunch. I'll leave you to it, bro, Lynn replied as she pushed herself off the tree. As she started stretching her legs, I gotta get back inside so the teacher doesn't yell at me too much. Lincoln raised a brow. You've been skipping class this whole time? Nah. Lynn pulled up a leg to stretch her quads. Just 30 minutes. Letting her leg fall back to the ground, she started walking towards the building. See you at home, Link. Lincoln watched her go until she disappeared behind one of the doors. It took a full moment for him to realize that he hadn't been tensed up in the entire time. All the nervousness and uncertainty he had felt before their chat had reached all-time lows by the time it finished. When it went without saying that he didn't feel as afraid as he should have been after Lynn somehow managed to calm him down. She did turn everything she could to make him more comfortable. In spite of his earlier outburst, she didn't hold that much of the amount of slights over his head and believed him to be in the right. In return, he rewarded with effort by making an attempt to try and put his trust in her. That's what it was for, right? So for the time being, what felt like forever, Lincoln didn't view Lynn as if she was a stranger that wronged him in the past. And for those 20 or so minutes, he felt as if he felt like he lost a family member. It would explain why he asked her for advice on how to deal with his other siblings, instead of just Lynn giving pointers he was hesitant to follow. And unlike the previous time, he was more than willing to follow up his commitment instead of dwelling on it. But even his newfound confidence settled in his chest. Lincoln didn't help but wonder if he was just fleeting for a moment of courage, or he generally believed he could be more confident in improving relationships with his formerly sporty sister. Part of him felt it was a necessary evil, as much as she was the strongest of his siblings, making her such a shield if things got too hectic with the other girls. But a part of Lincoln longed for things to return to normal, having 10 loving sisters who occasionally got on his nerves, even though it seemed like a pipe dream now. Can I really trust Lynn? Lincoln mumbled to himself, only to be pulled back up into reality as the bell rang.